Hello.
Hello, Madhuri. Yes.
Yes,
Let us start for the day.
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. Today is the second day of this webinar series hosted by the Department of English of BPHE Society's Ahmednagar College, Ahmednagar. Yesterday, we started with Dr. Shardul Thakur making a fine presentation on career prospects in English studies. One of the careers that Dr. Thakur mentioned was teaching, and today we have Dr. Thakur's colleague, in fact, and my very good friend, Dr. Madhuri Gokhale, who will be discussing with us further aspects of prospects in English studies, but specifically focusing on the field of academics, let us say, and how to become a senior college or university teacher by, passing NET and SET as its qualification. So specifically focusing on NET and SET, Dr. Madhuri Gokhale will guide us, and I will welcome all the participants who have already joined and who will be joining in. Let me make a couple of announcements before I move on, which is that I request all the participants to keep their audio off throughout this click the present button on your Google Classroom app. That's going to disrupt the presentation that Madam Gokhale will be making. So I request everyone to make sure that they won't click that present button on their app. The second announcement I would like to make is that at the end of Dr. Gokhale's presentation, we will take question and answer. We'll take questions, and the questions will be taken in the form of the chat. So you can ask your question in the chat. If you ask vocally, it is going to be a little bit of a chaos. So we will take the questions only in the chat box. So you can key in your questions in the chat box. Please don't do that during the presentation, but do that once the presentation is over. That will be more convenient. Thank you all for joining. Welcome once again. And now let me give you a brief introduction of Dr. Madhuri Gokhale, who works as the Associate Professor at the Department of English of the prestigious Fergusson College, Pune. She is a recipient of Alegaonkar Brothers Gold Medal for standing first at MA in Savitribai Phule Pune University. She has qualified SET in English, NET in English, as well as NET in linguistics. She has several awards to her credit. To name a few, she received the Best Professional Award of Rotary International and got a chance to study at Ohio, USA in 2008. In 2011, she was the only one who was selected to represent India at Global Theatre London by the English-speaking Union of London. In 2014, she received the Best Teacher Award from the Center of Education Development and Research. She has conducted several workshops for teachers and students in India and abroad. She is on the advisory board of LTIS Symbiosis. 6 MPhil students and 7 PhD students have completed their research under her guidance. Her areas of specialization are linguistics, English language and literature teaching, stylistics, and pragmatics. And one other thing is she's also a very popular teacher, and especially her language teaching is very well known, and I welcome Dr. Madhuri Gokhale. Thank you very much, Madam Gokhale, for joining us. And now I hand over the webinar session to Dr. Gokhale.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your kind words. Dr. Barnabas, Principal of Ahmednagar College. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, yes, okay. Dr. Barnabas, Principal of Ahmednagar College, Dr. Kamlakar Bhatt, all the faculty members present here, Mr. Sai, thank you so much for your technical assistance, and all the rising stars of English studies in front of me today, a very good morning to all of you. The topic given to me today is preparing for the next set examinations in English. I thank Dr. Kamlakar Bhatt for this topic. Actually, it makes me feel nostalgic because the way for me to prepare for this lecture and the PowerPoint presentation was to become nostalgic, try to recollect how did I go about it as a student of language and literature when I was a student at NA. And whatever I'll be presenting before you in this morning, actually, in a sense, I'll be sharing my experience of studying for these examinations. So it's a great pleasure to be with all of you this morning. Before I move on to my presentation, just few things that I would like to say about these examinations. I'm aware that the audience in front of me, the students who are listening to me right now, there are different kinds of categories in the sense that some of you are pursuing your bachelor's, some of you are MA students, some of you have probably completed your MA, probably some of you, I can see some of the familiar names, you have actually cleared your SETNET and probably trying for JRF. Some of you have no information about these exams. So what I would like to do is to give you the basic information about how these exams are conducted, what is the structure, and then of course we would move into some advanced areas as far as these exams are concerned. Now in general, as you know, when we start preparing for these exams, to be honest, if I think of myself, I think the task, the goal and this ambition looks actually impossible. And a very simple reason for this is that there is no syllabus, and then in a sense we feel that we are expected to know everything about English language and English literature. Yes, you actually breathe and you really start questioning as to how this is going to happen. This appears to be scary. But then I'm sure that after I give you some of the steps and suggest some of the steps, you will feel more confident to study and handle these examinations. Now, very often, people have a negative attitude towards these tests. What happens is across, in our day-to-day life, I would say as a teacher of English, I too have come across people who are excellent teachers of English, but they have not been able to crack the SET and NET examination. So in terms of qualification, they do not possess this degree, but actually in reality, they are very good teachers. We also see the other extreme where some students have cleared the SET-NET examination, but then if you see the kind of teaching that happens in some colleges, it's not really a satisfactory kind of teaching. So the question is, are these exams really necessary? And probably because of this, there is a lot of negative attitude towards these examinations. I completely agree with the fact that an examination cannot really test the teacher's skill in the sense that teaching is all about skill. It is not just about knowledge, right? So if we think of two aspects, the aspect of knowledge and the aspect of skill, I think what a teacher needs is definitely some aspect of skill that is certainly more important. And as you would agree with me, these exams don't really test the skill component. So ideally, probably what we would have liked is that if somebody gets a job in a senior college as a lecturer, he should be asked to probably teach. The panel can ask him to carry out micro teaching. The concerned candidate can teach for 15 minutes, which I personally believe is a better way to test the teacher. But then friends, let me also say that we are all part of a system. There are certain positive aspects of an examination and there are certain negative aspects of an examination. So I would suggest that rather than talking about these examinations negatively, saying that how can one conduct an examination where there is practically no syllabus, or by saying or by questioning the very necessity of this examination. I think these are the things that are not really going to be useful to us. As I've said, we are all a part of that system, and let us approach this exam in a positive spirit. So before I move ahead, I wish you all the very best of luck to develop this positivity amongst yourselves. Let me now address this question as to why do we need to crack the NET or SET examination. Those of you who are students of TYBA, let me tell you that SET stands for the State Eligibility Test, and NET stands for the National Eligibility Test. Hello, Dr. Bhatt, are you able to see the full screen? Yes.
Yes,
okay,
yes, Madhuri.
So, why is it necessary to crack the NET or SET examination? In continuation with what Dr. Shardul Thakur said yesterday, if you remember, of the many career options, he pointed out that teaching is or could be one of the career options. And yesterday you all understood how and what are the different career options that are available. So the first point that I would like to make is that we need to crack SET or NET examinations if we want to make and transform our passion into our profession. A teacher, a candidate may be extremely good at English language or literature, but if he doesn't possess this qualification, the required qualification, that is MA and either SET or NET, if you wish to teach in Maharashtra, you will have to crack SET. If it is at the national level, if you wish to apply at all India level, then you will have to clear NET. So if you wish to teach at a senior college level or at the level of university, I would say it is a mandatory step that you clear your SET NET. So you have a desire, you are passionate about teaching, and then definitely I would say this is one of the prime reasons to why you need to clear your SET NET exam. But then, friends, let us also remember that, as I've said in the first line that you see, for me, the most important word there is passion. We don't want to become teachers by accident, but we want to become teachers by choice, right? So, as it was also said yesterday, that nothing works and so I became a teacher. I think that's not a very good idea. If you really possess that desire, of course, you need to crack it. So all those who wish to join this profession, it is necessary that for our performance in the class to go well, for our own satisfaction, let us make this profession our passion too. So if you wish to join the teaching, if you wish to join the senior college or university level teaching, if you want to do that, then certainly you need to crack SET or NET. At the same time, I would also like to say that probably some of you know that you never want to teach. And I think it's quite a good idea. It's quite a good thing to happen in life to understand what is it that you don't want to become. So in case some of you know about yourself that you're not really good at explaining, you don't want to become a teacher, I think that is perfectly fine. I think you know yourself very well, know thyself philosophy. And if that is a situation, I think you should not be appearing for SET NET examinations at all because you don't want to teach. So let this aspect be clear that you will appear for this examination, or it would be a required qualification in your life only and only if you wish to teach. Also,
Madhuri, sorry
yes,
to interrupt. What has happened is the PPT is not visible. Sai will give you instruction as to how to make it visible.
Okay.
Ma'am?
Yes, just one sec.
Yes.
Yes, Sai?
मॅम पुन्हा एकदा त्यांना सरांना प्रेझेंट करावं लागेल.
Okay.
साइड बारला दिसतोय परंतु फुल स्क्रीन दिसत नाहीये. सरांना पुन्हा एकदा प्रेझेंट करावं लागेल. प्रेझेंट नाव मधून बरोबर आता होत आहे. आता फुल स्क्रीन फक्त करायचंय.
फुल स्क्रीन.
त्याच्या उजव्या बाजूला एक पॉइंट शेअर नाही, त्याला बंद केलं की तो डायरेक्टली हे कट करेल मॅडम.
काय होईल?
तुम्ही ज्याला क्लोज करताय ना त्यामुळे तो पूर्ण जातोय.
अच्छा, त्याला क्लोज नाही करायचं. एक मिनिट.
शेजारी त्याला क्लोज करूच नका सर, त्यालाच क्लोज करा.
क्लोज नाही करत आहे. दिसतंय आता?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yes, yes.
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 Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry for interrupting you, Madhuri.
No problem, sir. Yes.
Yeah.
So, as I was saying, that if you would like to venture into college teaching or university teaching, then of course this is one of the main reasons to why we should be clearing SETNET. The second reason that I have put on the screen is that SETNET would be and is an opportunity to enrich our competence in English language and literature. Of course, at the BA and MA program, we do get this opportunity undoubtedly, but I think to develop all our 4 language skills and also to read more, because all said and done at the BA and MA level, for example, at the optional level, let's say at your MA Part 2, if you choose American literature or you might choose cultural studies, then you generally tend to study those 2 papers, optional papers or special papers for the entire year. And then you do not really get a chance to read and explore the other types of literature. So SETNET is an opportunity where I would say that the syllabus is so vast. But then rather than looking at it negatively, I would say this is a chance and this is a golden opportunity for us to know more about English literature and also literatures in English. At the same time, it is an opportunity for us to know something about linguistics, different branches of linguistics like social linguistics, psycholinguistics, applied linguistics, theoretical linguistics, computational linguistics, stylistics, pragmatics, and so on. So at the BA or MA level, we generally tend to just touch on these issues, whereas SETNET is an opportunity to dwell deep into this area and improve and enhance our understanding. The third point that I've put on the screen is that it helps us not just to develop our language skills, listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Now, you might wonder why am I saying that it helps to improve our speaking skill or listening skill, because after all, it's a written test. I'll answer this question a little later, but then, if we develop our study habits, if we start studying in groups, I believe it is an opportunity to develop all our 4 language skills. At the same time, it is an opportunity to develop your study habits. What I mean by this is that till your BA and MA program, your teacher is constantly there to guide you. Your teacher explains the topic. Whereas at this level, after your post-graduation, when you start studying, what is expected is that you achieve a sense of independence. Now, the term study habits, what it means is that you have to understand how to be good at note-taking, how to be good at note-making, how to learn the skill of summarizing, writing precisely, and so on. So, of course, ideally, these study habits should be developed at the BA level itself. But for some reason, if it has not happened at BA and MA, I would say, at least when you start studying for SETNET examinations, do pay attention to this aspect. In this lecture, I'll be suggesting some techniques through which you can develop your study habits and prepare yourself well for these examinations. The fourth point, I've said that we need to crack SETNET examinations in order to comprehend where we stand in the competitive world. All of you are aware that in the past, for example, the time when I appeared for the SET and NET examination, it was descriptive in nature. It was far more complex and far more difficult than the current structure of SET-NET. The current structure of SET-NET is where you have only and only objective questions. Again, personally, as I said at the beginning of the session, according to me, this is not such a good thing to happen, because if we want to test the teacher's skill, we can't be testing the teacher's knowledge only at the objective level and say that he or she is fit for teaching. But anyways, I would say that when we start studying for these examinations, we should be able to perceive the development, see the development in ourselves, first of all, as a student of language and literature. It is always said that we must learn to compete with ourselves. And friends, I hope that it happens in your case, where you understand the difference within you as a learner when you studied at the BA level, when you are a student or were a student at the master's level, and now when you start studying for SET-NET. Also, some thousands of students appear for these examinations, and of course, only few of them clear the examination. So in that sense, I have said that it is a chance for you to know where you stand. For example, you get your NET JRF right at the in the first attempt of appearing for NET when you are a student at MA. I think it's a fantastic thing to happen, and in a sense, you know where you stand in this whole market of getting a job at the college level. So there are two things that I'm hinting at. One, you understand where you stand amongst all your peers and all those who appear for the examination. The second thing, of course, is that we understand and comprehend how we are becoming a better learner, a better student, a better researcher of English language and literature. The next point is, I have said that SET-NET is an opportunity to acquaint yourself with the works written recently and in the current times. You would agree with me that quite often, after your MA and maybe you start teaching on a clock hour basis, whatever papers are assigned to us, we tend to read only something that we have to teach, or students may read only what is given in the syllabus or what is stated in the syllabus. And of course, as students and teachers of language and literature, this is certainly not enough. So SET-NET could be an opportunity where we start exploring, let's say, whatever has been written even after 2000, which may not be a part of your syllabus. But in order to prepare for these examinations, we need to know the latest, and we need to understand the recent works that have been published. Jokingly, people always say that when many students of literature appear for an interview, and we are often asked this question as to who is your favorite author, 99 out of 100 students say that it's William Shakespeare. Of course, Shakespeare was great. We have all enjoyed, and we've all enjoyed reading his plays. But then the very fact that students are not able to name other authors, or not able to name the authors who are not a part of the syllabus, certainly this is something that should not happen. We all have our choices, but the point is that we must read, and read as much as possible. So let us consider this to be an opportunity to explore and read some of the books that we did not have time, or it was not really a part of our BA or MA curriculum, and now we are ready to explore and enjoy that journey. The last and the most important point, some of you, those of you who have started studying for SET-NET, you may wonder why I have written the word enjoy, but I believe that it is really necessary that just as we have enjoyed our college days and our study of BA and MA course, we need to enjoy our SET-NET studies as well. Remember, literature, in a sense, manifests a very high degree of creativity. All of you are familiar with the reader response theory. The poems that are written, the novels, the plays that we read, and the wonderful writing that these writers carry out. I believe tomorrow and day after, there's going to be a speaker who would speak from the writers and the poets' point of view. But then you will agree with me that the reader also shares a lot of responsibility. It is a reader who gives meaning to the text. So I think all of us must enjoy that journey of interpreting by ourselves, analyzing the text critically. And I think it really takes us into a different kind of world, which I'm sure all of us as students of English literature have already experienced. So as it is said that the principle of defeated expectancy works to a very large extent in literature. So there are all kinds of surprises. There are all kinds of experiments at the language level that happen in literature. And friends who are reading, let us try to explore as much as possible in the world of language and literature. So I hope I've answered the question as to why do we need to crack SET and NET examination. What I'm emphasizing is that apart from the purpose of certification, that is, if you have the SET NET certificate, it is a doorstep for you to venture into college and university teaching, which is fine, which is going to happen. But apart from that certification, I think a lot goes into the preparation, and there is going to be a lot of advantage or other kinds of advantages, as you see on the screen, if we prepare systematically for these examinations. Let me briefly say something about the structure of the examination, especially in the benefit of those students, the undergraduate students who may not know much about these papers. So SET-NET examination is for 3 hours and you have 2 papers. As you can see on the screen, paper 1 is entitled General Paper on Teaching and Research Aptitude. So you have 50 questions. The major components of this paper are 1, teaching aptitude. So in simple terms, I would say that this is a kind of general knowledge paper. Right? So in paper 1, you do not really have questions on English literature, but it is a GK based paper. The first component, teaching aptitude, of course, would try to test the skills, whether you possess those skills as a teacher. Now, all this is a multiple choice test. You have a question and 4 options. So the entire test, as I've just said, is objective in nature. The second component is research aptitude. So there are some questions related to research, probably the idea being that now you have completed your master's and some of the teachers would also venture into research, MPhil or PhD. So there are some questions that are going to test your research skills. Then you have comprehension to test your comprehension. Number 4, there are certain questions which are based on communication. What we mean here is that these questions would test your understanding of different theories of communication and so on. Number 5, mathematical reasoning and aptitude. Yes, that could be a matter of worry for some of us. After our 10th standard, we have forgotten all our mathematics. And now for this purpose, we need to revise. I won't say it is advanced mathematics. It is basic mathematics. Again, the point being that mathematics, logic, and reasoning, it's not the concern only of mathematicians or logicians. So probably what they have in mind is that a practicing teacher of English, for example, we teach grammar, we need to look at the logic as well. So, all these skills are the basic skills that a teacher needs to acquire. So there will be some questions on mathematics and logic. Data interpretation. Today's world is a world of ICT. So you're going to have some questions on information and communication technology. Then there would be some questions on people, development, and environment. I believe at the undergraduate level, environmental studies has become a kind of essential paper now. We need to be sensitive to our environment and we need to do something to preserve it. So along those lines, you would have some questions and also questions on the higher education system. So for example, we need to know something about the national education policy and so on. A little later, I'm going to suggest some books that would be useful to prepare ourselves for paper 1. But as you can clearly see, this is something where you need a lot of practice, because as I said, after our school education in the last 6-7 years probably, we have not really been solving questions along these lines. I don't think it is very difficult, but it is certainly something that needs a lot of practice. And I keep coming across some students who say that, let me finish my study of paper 2 completely, because that itself is too much, and then I would start studying for paper 1. I would suggest, please don't do that. Take a component of the 10 components that you see here on the screen. And I think every day you can solve some questions related to a particular component, which gives you a lot of practice. Coming to paper 2 now, if you see the structure, paper 2, again, you have 50 questions. Now, what you see on the screen, let's say, is a syllabus for English. And as I just said at the beginning, this is scary, right? It doesn't look like syllabus at all. Because we are all familiar when we look at our BA or MA syllabus, if you say drama paper, you will see King Lear by Shakespeare, you would see certain titles and names of the playwrights, but you do not see anything of that kind as far as this syllabus is concerned. So what the SETNet syllabus just says is that the various components included in this paper are drama, poetry, fiction, short story, non-fictional prose, language, basic concepts, theories and pedagogy, English in use, English in India, history, evolution and futures, cultural study, criticism, literary theory post-World War II, research methods and materials in English. Yes, a pause, and we would start thinking as to what exactly are we going to do. The canvas is so large, the spectrum is so wide, and is it possible to know everything about drama, everything about poetry, ELT, cultural studies, research methods? Therefore, as I said, that even when I started studying, to be honest, the goal looked impossible. But then you start understanding how to go about it. And as I said, I'm going to suggest certain steps that would be useful for you to start preparing for these examinations. So ideally, when you feel that when you are going to appear for this examination, you have to definitely know something about each of these components, right? You can't really leave 2-3 components for option, for example, and study the other half well. I don't think that's a very good idea. So we have to know something about every component. Now, one of the important things that you can do is to understand who are the authors and who are the writers on which questions are quite often set. Now, that's not to say that if you look at the canon of English literature and some of the names that you do not see on the screen, of course, we don't want to say that they're not important authors, right? We have read their books, we've enjoyed their books, and all these authors, all these other authors also have made a mark in English literature. But then what you see here is the analysis of some of the question papers. And if you analyze these question papers, you would be able to have, you're able to access these papers on the UGC website. And then if you analyze these papers, you would see that some of these authors, for example, Shakespeare, Charles Dickens, Chaucer, Milton, Wordsworth, D.H. Lawrence, the list continues. You have Indian writers, Anita Desai, Arundhati Roy, R.K. Narayan. Then you have critics, I. Richards, T.S. Eliot, Roland Barthes, Raymond Williams, Gayatri Spivak, Foucault, Derrida, Edward Said, Salman Rushdie, Homi Bhabha, to name few linguists. There are quite often questions are asked on Saussure, Cutchroo, Delhines, Noam Chomsky, Leach, and so on. Now, the purpose of giving you this list is that as a student of SETNet, I think it is important to carry out this analysis and understand that on the one hand, there is no syllabus, because if we just say drama, this is not really syllabus and we would not understand which plays we should read. But on the other hand, if you systematically analyze the question papers, you would understand where the focus of your study should be, who are the authors that are usually included when the paper is set. As I said, this is not a complete list. There cannot be a complete list. There is every possibility that we have a question on the author that you do not see on the screen right now. But what I just want to highlight is that it is important to do this kind of exercise when we are appearing for the SET and NET examination.
Madam.
Yes.
हाँ मॅम सही बोलतोय. एकदा परत स्क्रीन प्रेझेंट करताल का? काही जणांना दिसत नाही, ते परत एकदा कट झाले मॅम.
ओके.
यस. एक दोन पार्टिसिपेंट मध्ये डायरेक्टली स्क्रीन प्रेझेंट करत होते, त्यामुळे ते
नाही पण ते ऑटोमॅटिकली कशामुळे होतंय?
बाकीचे लोक जर त्यांनी स्क्रीन प्रेझेंट केलं ना.
अच्छा, बाकीच्या लोकांना मग एकदा भट सरांना पण सांगा परत एकदा इन्स्ट्रक्शन द्यायला.
येस 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 मी सांगतो. But sir,
I request all the participants to make this special note not to touch that present button. Please stay away from there. If you can't see the PPT, then Sai tells me that if you click on the pin icon of the PPT, then throughout the presentation, you will be able to see the PPT. Please do not touch the present option in the in your app.
Sai, दिसतंय का?
हो दिसतंय मॅम. आता शिफ्ट F5 दाबलं की फुल स्क्रीन होईल मॅडम. शिफ्ट F5.
एक मिनिट. हाँ F5.
शिफ्ट F5. राइट.
दिसतंय?
Yes ma'am. Yes ma'am. Yes,
okay. So okay. Thank you, Sai. Yes. So just remember that these are some of the important authors from the perspective of SET and NET examinations. Let me now put in light some of the important topics covered in English language and literature teaching and linguistics. These are some of the topics that on which several times questions have been asked in these examinations. The first one, theories of language teaching. Certainly, now these are the questions or these are the areas on which you may find some questions even in paper 1 from the perspective of education, and there are questions also in paper 2. So when we talk about theories of language teaching, you must be familiar with the behavioristic and the cognitivistic theories of teaching. There are other theories of language teaching as well, but I would say these two theories are extremely important. What should happen is that you need to understand behaviorism and cognitivism from the theoretical perspective. These theories have primarily stemmed from psychology, but then at the level of application, what are the implications of behavioristic and cognitivistic theories for language and literature teaching? So for example, when we talk of cognitivism, this is a theory which suggests that it is important to channelize the learner's mind. It is important to make our classes learner-centric. It believes in the dictum, learning is doing, and so on. So you need to understand the theory and also understand its implications for both teachers and learners. Then another important area is to understand language acquisition and language learning. Remember, when we talk of the languages that we are familiar with, very often we say that I have learned my mother tongue, English, and other languages. But then at the technical level, there is a difference. The term acquisition could be applied with reference to mother tongue, whereas the languages that we learn after the process of acquisition is complete they would fall into the term language learning. So we need to understand the differences between acquisition and learning, and also how a teacher of English can bridge or should bridge the gap between acquisition and learning in a second language situation. As we all have experienced, language acquisition has been a very pleasurable process for all of us. Of course, there is struggle involved, but then it was our need to communicate with the world around, and we acquired that language. We were able to acquire that language only because there was a favorable environment. So in the absence of language around us, we know that a baby fails to acquire any language. So just as our parents created a suitable ambience or suitable environment around us, because of which we acquired the language, similarly in our language teaching situations, let's say in second language situations, what we can borrow from the process of language acquisition is that this practicing teacher also needs to create a favorable environment when it comes to English language teaching. So we need to understand very explicitly the difference between acquisition and learning. The next topic is methods of language teaching. Probably some of you who have pursued your B.Ed program, you are aware of the number of methods of language teaching. And we must not just know these methods, I would say, for the SETNet purpose, but to make our classroom teaching more effective, actually we should bring in as many methods as possible. So, in India, very often the lecturing method, the teacher-centric mode of communication is quite common. But then if you probe into different methods of language teaching, I think these methods can make our classroom experience more enriching, both for the teacher and the learner. So we do talk about the grammar translation method, the direct method, which came as a reaction to the grammar translation approach. We have the audio-lingual method, the audio-visual approach. We talk about community language teaching today. You all are familiar with the Suggestopedia as a technique which includes music in the classroom. So through this method, it is possible to reduce the learner's stress. We must be familiar with the communicative language teaching approach, the CLT program, that it's important that we develop the students' communication skills in the class. You have the silent method, you have the total physical response, and many, many other methods that we must know. Of course, in our actual classroom, it's pretty difficult to stick to one method and deliver. So quite often we need to understand who our learners are, what are their needs, what is their background. And it's quite likely that we then adopt the eclectic approach. Eclectic meaning we combine the best of these different methods. But for that, what is essential is that the teacher should be aware of these different types of methods. Then we must know something about how to teach language skills, how to enhance the learner's language skills, listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Of course, due to constraints of time, I cannot talk about each of these aspects in detail, but this is just to give you an overview, an idea of what is it that you must prepare when you are studying for ELLT and linguistics. You must pay attention to the teaching of grammar and vocabulary. When we talk of language teaching, we need to understand how to teach pronunciation, grammar, and vocabulary well. Then role of L1 in language teaching. There are different theories, different experts and linguists who have expressed their view about whether or not the mother tongue of the learner's mother tongue should be used in the teaching of English. And again, in the SETNet examination papers, if you analyze the papers well, you find a lot of questions along this line. So I would say that let us be open, and we may agree with only one of the schools of thought which says, do not use any mother tongue in English classroom. That's fine. But what is important is to understand what these different schools of thought suggest. So there is a school of thought which rejects the use of mother tongue, a school of thought that supports the use of L1, and also a school of thought that kind of presents a judicious view, a balance, where it says that only and only when it is absolutely necessary we should shift to mother tongue. Then we must know some of the concepts. For example, remedial teaching is an important notion. So we carry out remedial teaching when we need to correct or compensate for the learner's inadequate understanding of the subject matter. And what are the steps that a teacher needs to master while carrying out remedial teaching. The other important terms are peer teaching, peer meaning equal. So you teach your friends, for example. Micro teaching. English for specific purposes is one of the important topics in linguistics, abbreviated as ESP. So we distinguish this from the EGP course, English for general purpose, and what you have here is English for specific or special purpose. These courses would be, in fact, they are already in great demand, but we don't have really practicing teachers to carry out such specialized courses. So if we have to run a course like, let's say, English for scientists, English for doctors, then we need to follow a different kind of methodology of teaching. This is going to be a need-based course. We are going to teach adults. So we need to understand how to go about conducting these courses and what are the skills that we will have to acquire. So right from framing the syllabus for this particular course, you know, a teacher becomes a researcher, a teacher needs to be a material producer. So you may have some questions on the ESP component. In ELT, there's a lot of weightage given to computer assisted language learning, also known as CALL. So how we need to integrate technology effectively in our classroom. Once again, you would have questions on this aspect both in paper 1 and 2. Some of the questions would be related to testing, assessment, and evaluation. At the technical level, we consider evaluation to be the broadest term, which includes testing and assessment. So some of you are familiar with the distinction between formative evaluation and summative evaluation. Some of you are experiencing what is called as continuous evaluation. So what is better? What are the advantages of one over the other? So evaluation is another important area. Then we need to understand the distinction between syllabus and curriculum. Once again, curriculum is a wider term and it includes syllabus. So in fact, syllabus framing is it's something that could also operate as a career option for some of you who do not want to teach. But then if you become an expert in syllabus designing, I think the market is open. So there are different kinds of syllabi and we need to be familiar with them. We also need to give a thought to some of the major issues in language teaching, considering the Indian context, for example, the issue of handling large class, the issue of handling mixed ability learners, because our classes are heterogeneous in nature. So how it is possible to reach every learner, we need to give a thought to it. Very often you will find questions on varieties of English, British and American English as native varieties, and general Indian English as the non-native variety. Stylistics and pragmatics, the two levels of linguistic analysis. You would also have, there is a focus on some of the terms in linguistics like diachronic and synchronic linguistics. So for example, if you study a language at the way it operated at two different points of time, this is diachronic. If you try to study how language operated, let's say during the Shakespearean era, this would be synchronic linguistics, where the focus is on one point of time. Concepts like long and parole. You will have to read a lot on Noam Chomsky's contribution to linguistics, aspects like figures of speech, analysis of meter, and so on. So the list continues. I'm aware that already the list that I have given to you is a huge list, but at the same time, I'm saying that this is not a complete list. Just for you to realize that we need to really study and we need to really work a lot in terms of reading and preparing our notes. Let me now come to this aspect where I would suggest some useful resources for literature. Again, as I said, in the span of 1 hour, it is impossible to really give a complete list, but I would answer this question from the student's perspective, the kind of books that I read when I studied for these examinations. To begin with, those of you who are at BA, you must make yourself familiar with literary terms. So the very famous M.H. Abrams Glossary of Literary Terms. Then on the screen, you see some history books. Obviously, your question would be, is it possible to read each of these history books in detail? I know it's not really possible, but then whatever book you choose, I would suggest that start making systematic notes on the history books that you choose to read. For example, if you start reading Outline History of English Literature by Hudson, comparatively it's a tiny book. The advantage of the next book, for example, Short Oxford History of English Literature by Andrew Sanders, I remember this is a book that covers the period after 1950s, 1960s also extremely well. So maybe I'm not going to read all the chapters from Short Oxford History of English Literature, but I would certainly read that section which covers and talks about the area after 1950. So I would suggest have a look at these books. I know that due to constraints of time, you may not and you will not be able to probably go through all the books. But pick up one history book where you religiously, scrutinize and read it, sort of reading between the lines and make very good notes on it. The 2 volumes on History of English Literature by W.R. Goodman, if you have come across this book, there is a section in this history book entitled At a Glance. So you have this book written in terms of different periods of English literature. So you have, let's say, the Romantic age, the Victorian age, the modern period, and so on. Now, what this book does is that after every period, let's say the Victorian age, you will see a section at a glance. Under At a Glance, you would see important events, important names, important titles of the books. And I think this is extremely valuable information in terms of the SETNET examination. So you may not really read Goodman's history completely, but if you feel that At a Glance is one such section which you must glance at, please do so. Then you have critical approaches to literature, and also I think most of you have read Beginning Theory by Peter Barry, which kind of gives you introduction to different literary theories. The book entitled The Concise Oxford Companion to English Literature by Margaret Drabble, again is and would be a very useful book because briefly it gives you a summary of different books written in English literature, mainly British literature. Now, as I said, it's not really possible for us to read every play and novel. But then if we have read the summary, which you can also nowadays do on the basis of your use of Google, it is important to know something about these texts. We may not have time to read the original, but I think a book of this kind helps us to understand the gist, understand the summary, the central idea of a particular text, which is useful for examination of this kind. Another very useful book is a Handbook of Critical Approaches to Literature. Why this book is better probably than just other books written on critical approaches is that this is a book which takes a sample. They've taken a poem and they have tried to analyze the same poem throughout the book as far as different critical approaches are concerned. All of you at your BA and MA program, you have studied the paper Literary Theory and Criticism, and you'll agree with me that if you are able to apply the theory to different texts, in fact, that is the reason why we study these different approaches, so that we are able to look at the text through various perspectives, through various lenses. So if you see the structural approach or the Marxist approach or the feminist approach, the same text is being analyzed vis-a-vis the approach in hand. So in order to get deeper insights into a particular critical theory, please do refer to this book as well. Another important book in terms of Indian literature in English is a book by M.K. Naik, Dimensions of Indian English Literature, which you can refer to for your study on Indian literature in English. Illustrated History of Indian Literature in English, then Indian Readings in Commonwealth Literature. Most of you probably have not studied the subject Cultural Studies at your MA. This is offered in few colleges in Pune and Maharashtra. But again, to get a general introduction of cultural studies, you can read a book entitled Cultural Studies, A Critical Introduction. Then you have American literature expert Oliver, and definitely you must pick up at least 1 or 2 books on research methods. Now, because you have not really started doing research, but then you have to make yourself familiar with the basics of research. And from that perspective, I think the last book that I have suggested would be useful. These would be some of the useful resources for language studies. Fundamental concepts in language teaching. So as I said, just as you have literary terms in the syllabus, you have several concepts in linguistics for which this book would be very useful. Routledge Encyclopedia of Language Teaching, which is also available online by Michel Bryan, which again talks about various notions in ELT and linguistics. Do refer to a dictionary of applied linguistics, a dictionary of stylistics. Now, all these dictionaries and books that talk about various concepts, it is important to understand that concept and then some of the topics that I already suggested in terms of ELT. On the basis of these concepts, you will be able to understand the theoretical topics. Another very useful book would be the Cambridge Encyclopedia of English Language by David Crystal that you see on the screen on the right side on the top. It runs into thousands of pages, but then this is very useful to understand language families. For example, understand history of English language, something probably that you have not really studied in detail in your syllabus. Those of you who have not read or would like to read about history of English language, there's a book written by A.C. Baugh, which would prove to be useful. The Teaching of Literature by Moody talks about how literature needs to be taught or can be taught effectively. And they do talk and say something about different genres like the teaching of poetry, drama, and fiction. So whatever is possible for you, and if there is a particular area which you need to understand about yourself that you are not much familiar with a particular area, please pick up any of these books and start reading and enjoy your reading. I'm going to present 10 questions in front of you. I hope all the students who are in front of me right now, you have a pen and paper, and just for you to understand where you stand and what are the kinds of questions that are asked. Of course, I have not actually picked up the difficult questions considering the fact that many undergraduate and postgraduate students are there. But just to give you a flair of what kind of questions are asked in the examination, let us quickly go through these 10 questions. I'll read the question. I'll give you half a minute to think about the answer, and then you can check for yourself whether it is right or wrong. Which one of the following has not been written by V.S. Naipaul? A. A House of Mr. Biswas. B. The Mimic Men. C. The Mystic Master. D. The River Between. I'll give you the answer straight away. The answer is option D, The River Between, which is written by an African writer, Thong. The other three are works of V.S. Naipaul. Now, this is just for you to understand that when you read your history books, for example, if you're reading M.K. Naik's Indian History of English Literature, if you know that this is the kind of question that is asked in the examination, I think when you make your notes, you need to jot down the title, right? So that is what stems from this question. Question 2, which of the following statements is correct? A, Lang is the language system and parole the individual usage. B. Lang is the language usage and parole the individual system. C. Lang is the language in abeyance and parole the individual application. D. Lang is the language collective and parole the individual deviation. You know that Ferdinand de Saussure makes this distinction between Lang and parole. A little later, Noam Chomsky also talks about competence and performance. The correct answer is option A. Lang is the language system and parole the individual usage. So the actual manifestation is a part of parole. Question 3. These were the kind of questions that I never liked as a student of SETNet. But anyway, what is the order of publication of the following books of Noam Chomsky? A. Problems of Knowledge and Freedom. B. Aspects of the Theory of Syntax. C. Syntactic Structures. D. Knowledge of Language. Answering this kind of question needs knowledge of two kinds. One, we have to know that all these books are written by Chomsky. Second, we have to know the year of publication. And of course, only then we will be able to answer this question. So quite a task. The answer is option 3, C, D, A, D. Option 3. Question 4. Who among the following has elaborated on the Indianization of English? I'm sorry, I have not said ABCD, but you can assume it to be so. Okay, it's A. Khubchandani, B. Kachru, C. Kumara Vaidagalu, D. Kristen. The answer is option B. I hope most of you have got it. Braj Kachru. In 1983, he came up with this book called The Indianization of English. He has other titles as well, The Alchemy of English, English Across Cultures. So Braj Kachru worked extensively on the notion of Indianization of English. Question 5. The grammar translation method of language teaching does not include A. Focus on grammar rules. B. Vocabulary memorization. C. Inductive teaching. D. Focus on written language. The answer is option C. The grammar translation method of language teaching does not include inductive teaching. There is a difference between deductive and inductive teaching. In deductive teaching, we present the rule first and then we provide examples. Whereas in inductive teaching, we move from examples to norm or examples to rule. Question 6. Skimming means A. Reading long pieces of text. B. Reading for details. C. Reading quickly to get the gist. And D. Examining language carefully. I'm sure you have come across terms like skimming, scanning, surveying the text, intensive reading, extensive reading. So skimming is a technique of fast reading. The correct option is C, where we read the text quickly in order to get the gist of the text. Question 7. A silent period is a time when learners A. do written work, B. process the language, C. study the language, D. study the grammar carefully. The correct option is option B, process the language. This is a term specifically used with reference to second language acquisition, where the user doesn't really start producing the language but he is at a stage where he's processing the language. So as I just talked about the term acquisition, where he's alert and he's listening to the language around and he's processing it. So technically, this is called a silent period. Kinesthetic learners learn best through seeing, learn best through working alone, learn best through hearing, learn best through using their body. You've heard the word probably kinesthetics and so on, even if you have not come across kinesthetic learners. So this is how we should try to make a guess in the examination as well. You know the association with action when we talk about the word kinesthetics. So the correct option is option D, learn best through using their body. Question 9. When a test is conducted to find out how good the learners are in using a language, it is called a proficiency test, diagnostic test, placement test, or progress test. The correct option is option A. It is proficiency test to understand how proficient the learner is in using a language vis-a-vis the 4 language skills, listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And the last question, Osgood supports the behavioristic approach, the mentalistic approach, the eclectic approach, none of the above. The correct answer is option A, the behavioristic approach. Osgood was an American psychologist who strongly supported the use of behaviorism and has done a lot of work in behavioristic theory. I'm sure you're familiar with the name of Skinner, who wrote a very important book, The Verbal Behavior, and after which Osgood also worked on behaviorism. So you have solved 10 questions. Congratulations to all those who have got 10 out on 10. I hope we have at least few of you who have got 10 out of 10, or your score is good. In case you have, of course, with these 10 questions, we cannot make any judgment, but the point, the reason of doing this was just to give you a brief idea of how these questions or what kind of questions are asked in the examination. In the last 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to focus on how we need to prepare for this examination, and then I would be happy to answer your questions. So, as I said, studying for the BA and MA program and studying for SETNET are 2 different things. We need to inculcate effective study habits if we wish to crack the exam. Before this, before starting with this slide, also I keep meeting some students who say that X did not study at all for SETNET, but he has passed. I just say, I was not lucky. I had to study. So we are all different in terms of the number of hours that we need to study, what we should read, how we should be reading, and so on. But certainly I believe that studying systematically, studying with devotion is an important part as far as preparation of this exam is concerned. So what are those study skills that we need to develop? I've already said this, that you need to make systematic notes as far as your study is concerned. You can pick up certain cards or you can make certain cards. I'll just show you the size of the card or how it looks like. For example, if you're able to see on the screen, I have said here, chief poets of the Raphaelite movement. And on a card of this kind, so I might have referred to a particular history book, but when I make my notes, I did prepare cards of this kind, and which were very handy. I could go back to these cards whenever I wish to revise, and all the important points related to a particular author or a particular concept, they would appear on a card of this kind. For example, I have another one which says Edwardian period. With a diagram, I have noted down when this period starts and what is the end of it. and some of the important major poets, dramatists, and novelists of Edwardian era. So just on one card, I'm able to visualize all these important authors. Do not underline important words in the books. I said this because if you pick up a history book running into 1,000 pages and you're going to underline all the important words, friends, I don't think you have time to really open every page again and see whatever is important. I think you should prepare notes in such a way that you don't have to go back to the textbook or to the book again, but your notes would be so comprehensive and so well written that they are just enough to study for these examinations. The next important point is that you need to study the previous question papers very carefully and make a note of different kinds of questions that are asked, which will eventually help you to prepare your notes. Please note, I'm suggesting that you should not look at the question papers after you complete your study. I'm saying that this should become or can become your starting point, so that whenever you read your glossary, whenever you read your history books and other reference material, you already have in mind the kind of questions that are asked, and this is something that will help you to prepare your notes. For example, I've just given you a sample. In the set and net question papers, very often you see a question like X book is written by. So information along these lines should be noted by you when you make your notes, or arrange the authors in a chronological sequence. So let's say you have university wits and you have to arrange them in chronological sequence, or a question like the above line is from dash poem, right? So a line is given in the question paper and you have to identify the poem or the term X means. For example, the term negative capability means dash. So you have to have knowledge of the various terms and concepts. So I think if you analyze question papers very well, right now I've given you just 4 parameters, but if you analyze the papers well, I'm sure you'll come across some 10-15 points, and then it is going to be easy for you to make your notes. Also refer to different kinds of material for practice. As teachers of English, and I'm sure your teachers often say that do not refer to the so-called guides in the market. I also support this view strongly. But then I would say that there are certain guides which will give you some kind of practice. Please remember that these guides, which are not really written by practicing teachers probably, but a lot of material is compiled. But then what you find in these books is that with the help of these books, you have a lot of objective questions in front of you, and you can keep solving those questions. The key to answers is also given after the question. Just be particular and give a thought to this as to whether the answer given in these guidebooks is correct. There is a possibility that it may not be right. But then if you have studied your subject well, you would understand that the given answer is wrong. But then after you have finished your reading of glossary terms and history books, I believe no harm in going to these guides and solving as many questions as possible. One of the other things that you could do is that, for example, if you have referred to the Renaissance period, you have read history book, you have read some other books as well, you have made your notes, and from 2 or 3 different kinds of books, if you solve 300 questions on the Renaissance period, I think that will give you more confidence to understand, remember, and retain what you have read. And that brings me to the next point, that you need to revise and revisit and reflect over what you have read. Even while I was studying, and now I see as a teacher that some students study for 15 hours, 17 hours, whatever, hats off to them. But then, you also need to revise whatever notes you have made. So don't keep reading till the last day of your exam. I don't think that's a very good idea. In other words, I'm suggesting that you must make a systematic reading plan. You have to study the nature, structure of the exam, what kind of questions are asked. And if you have 6 months in your hand, I would say that, within 4 months or so, your notes should be complete. And now the remaining 2 months is a time that you must give to revise. And if you prepare the cards, as I just showed you, every day, in 2 hours time, you can actually browse through all those cards, which helps you to retain the concept or the idea. What is important, friends, is not for how many hours you have studied, but how effectively you have studied. I will not be able to give you any such formula if any one of you asks me this question as to how long I should study. I don't know. I really don't know, in the sense that, we have to understand how we are, where we are, how much we need to study. But I would just say that whatever time you have in hand, make the best use of it, study effectively. And it's not really for how many hours, as I've said, but we need to adopt the right kind of techniques. We need to develop our analytical and critical skills and study well. By effective studying, or one of the ways in which you can carry out effective study, is group study. I often suggest this, and some of my students at Fergusson College, I'm happy they did practice it and came back and told me that this was very useful. I don't think these are kinds of examinations where we need to close the door and study always in privacy. I think we need to talk a lot. So if you form a group of, let's say, 4 friends together, for example, because when we listen to others, and therefore I said at the beginning that it is also an opportunity to develop all your language skills as well. That though the nature of the paper is that it is a written test, you're going to listen to your friends, you're going to talk to them, you're going to read a lot, and of course, you're going to make notes and write. So it's an opportunity to develop all your language skills and study skills. The time when I wrote the examination, as I told you, the nature of the paper was much more difficult, in the sense that there was no syllabus and it was all descriptive in nature. But then I would say that the kind of discussion I had with my friends in the canteen, for example, or the kind of arguments that we had, there were moments when we did not, agree with each other till the end, but then we argued. I would say that whatever I remembered in the book certainly was useful, but whatever my friends said, whatever my friends articulated, it was absolutely fresh in my mind, even at the time that I appeared for the exam. So I'm sure you have a lot of friends, and make best use of your friends, their arguments, their scholarship, and talk to different kinds of people. There are wonderful people, wonderful teachers, experts around us. So whenever you have a doubt, if you would like to discuss a poem or talk about a particular concept, I think you should open up. So what I'm suggesting is, it's not really and always mandatory that you have those you have a stipulated and restricted time where you say 12 to 3 I'll study, and only during those 3 hours you think about language and literature. I believe to crack these examinations, these concepts and language and literature actually they have to become a part of your personality, if you understand what I'm saying. I might be driving, but I'm thinking of a particular concept. I might be cooking, but I'm thinking of a particular poem. And this is enjoyment. This was enjoyment for me. And I'm sure that if it is with you all the time, cracking this examination will not be difficult at all. So make the best use of people around you. Talk to your teachers, your seniors, students who have qualified themselves in these examinations, and experts in the field. Last but not the least, by doing all this, by inculcating all these study habits, do enjoy the process of studying for SET and NET. Face this examination without any tension, without any stress. Be confident, and I think that would be the key for you to clear these exams. Shiv Khera once said, winners don't do different things, but they do things in a different way. I think time has come when, if at all we had those faulty study habits, we need to work on those study habits. We need to equip ourselves with the latest trends, know a lot about language and literature. We need to change ourselves. We should start where we are without taking any tension. But I'm sure with the right kind of approach, with the right kind of devotion, you all will certainly reach where you can. And I think that's very, very important. So as I just said 10, 15 minutes ago, some people have cleared SETNET. As they say that I did not study, but I cleared it, and I said, wonderful. You know, probably what is also important, and whether you clear these exams, it also depends on how well you have done your BA and MA. Because it just cannot happen that X was a bad student. By bad student, I mean he did not read, did not attend lectures till BA and MA, and suddenly you start studying after MA. I think the goal is going to be very difficult to reach. So quality is never an accident. So let us put in the best of efforts. Let us work hard to crack these examinations. And at the end of it, I think if we study and if we clear it, success is ours. We will be happy. We will make others happy too in the process, because as I said, this is going to be a doorway for us to join the profession that we always wanted to, and transform that passion into our profession. So for me, the 4 Ds of success are, I hope the first one, I hope it's visible. The first one is desire. You must possess desire. You must possess the willingness to clear and crack this exam. But mere desire is not enough. So the next D is dedication. Probably after my class, immediately some of you may start studying with full enthusiasm, but then it is important that you're consistent. You know, you do this every day. There has to be discipline. I hope I've already pointed out how it is important to be systematic while you're studying for these examinations. So maintain discipline and direction, which your teachers and the experts around you, they're all ready to give, and it would always be a matter of pleasure for your teachers to help you to crack these exams. So please remember these 4 Ds of success. Thank you very much for your patient listening. I wish you all the very best of luck for cracking the NET and SET examination. I hope that you would study systematically, clear these exams as early as possible. In this endeavor, if you would like to discuss anything with me at any point of time, it would be my pleasure to help you out. My email ID is madhuripune@yahoo.com. Madhuripune, one word, @yahoo.com. Thank you very much.
Study systematically. That is the message with which Dr. Gokhale is signing off. Thank you very much, Dr. Madhuri Gokhale, for that very, very comprehensive, detailed, concrete, and very useful, practical, advice to our students as to how they should go about preparing to clear NET and SET exams, so that they can have a chance at becoming academics, teachers, assistant professors in colleges or universities. Your session, as the comments are suggesting, has really been appreciated by our students. There are, however, quite a few questions. Yes. There are quite a few questions, Madhuri. Maybe I'll start with a question that was asked by somebody called a little while ago. Somebody called Priya, and then there are questions by many. Let me start with this question by Priya, which was asked much earlier, so I'll read that out. Can the candidates know how much weightage is given to each section in the exam? That is, how many marks for ELLT, how many for criticism, etc.?
No, I don't think we can know that kind of weightage. But roughly, if you see the syllabus and the guidelines given by SETNET, you have 50 questions, and there are 10 such components. Let's say if you focus on paper 1. So in general, as far as paper 1 is concerned, I think you have 3 to 4 questions or maximum 5 questions per component. If you focus on paper 2, there is a lot of weightage that goes to ELLT, criticism, British literature. You have cultural studies as well. I guess there are only few questions on American literature, post-colonial, and so on. But then NETSET guidelines do not really tell us that from every section we are going to essentially have 3 questions or 4 questions.
Thank you. People have asked your suggestion on a suitable book for research methodology and criticism.
Okay.
Two students have asked, Priya and Sheetal Sharma.
Okay, as far as criticism is concerned, and Priya, if you are a BA student, as I said, the book by Peter Barry, because that will give you a basic introduction to the different critical theories. So that should be a good book to start with. Now, as I said, the list is very long, and it really depends on a particular area that's where you would like to read more. But you can certainly start reading Dachis and Peter Barry. As far as research is concerned, now they would not really ask you very detailed kinds of questions. So the book that I showed you on the screen, Research Methods for Students, Academicians and Professionals, I think that's quite a good book by Williamson.
Okay. The next question, Dr. Madhuri, is from Flip Kanta, who asks if Wikipedia would be useful in preparing for NET exam.
Very much, Kanta. When I studied for NET, for example, we often refer to books like Masters of World Literature or a short Oxford Companion to English Literature to get the summaries of different kinds of books. But now with internet and Wikipedia, I think it would be a very useful technique, because if at all, let's imagine if you have studied 2 novels by V.S. Naipaul and you're not familiar with the other text, I think you can go to Wikipedia. You don't have time to really go to the original and read all the novels, but then you can go to Wikipedia and get and procure some extra information about that author. So please go ahead and do it.
Varinder Kaur, I hope your question has already been answered by ma'am. Rao Saheb Burase's question, of course, what about the aspirants who have already passed and haven't got a job? That, of course, is a very serious question, but I think that doesn't belong to our discussion today. Rutuja Khandwe wants to know, when is the next SET and NET exams?
Well, I don't think I'm the right person to answer that. Only UGC and SET office in Pune will be able to tell you that. I heard that because of the lockdown, the examination in June has been postponed. I heard that it would be in August, September, but I have no clue. I don't think that they have announced the final date until the situation in India and in Maharashtra and Pune improves. I don't think they will announce the date, but as you know, usually the NET examination is in the month of June and December. So let's hope that it happens by at least October or November.
Right. So that is another hope that we have to keep alive because of this COVID situation. Swami Shivachandra has this question, whether online material and online classes be useful in preparation.
They would be useful, provided that whatever online material you're using, or if you're listening to a particular speaker, do take guidelines or guidance of your teachers, who would be able to tell you that, this is the best resource that you can go online and use. So everything that is online may not be useful for this examination. The second, everything that is online, the quality, of course, is not always good. So if you study that aspect and take guidelines from your teachers, I don't see any problem. So anything and everything that is going to enrich your understanding of the subject, whether they are online resources, lectures, You may actually listen to different speakers, different kinds of textbook, reference book, guides. I think read as much as possible from anywhere and everywhere.
Right. Zainab Sardar asks reference books for history of English literature.
I think, Raina, I have already answered your questions. Today I mentioned 2 or 3 important books by W.R. Goodman. Another was by Andrew Sanders. You can also refer to W.H. Hudson. So pick up any one of these books and you can start making your notes. Also, David Betches has 2 volumes. Yes, sir.
Yeah. There is a question by Freni Darwala. In what way should we approach world literature, be it African, Australia, or even Canadian literature?
Yeah. Now, see, if at all you have never studied it as a part of your curriculum, let's say at the MA level, now you can pick up a book, one of the books that your teacher may suggest, but then that may not be enough because you have never studied it. I think one of the easy ways then to do it would be to make use of the internet. For example, through the analysis of your question paper, if you understand that a lot of questions, let's say, have been asked on Chinua Achebe, then you're going to put in Chinua Achebe, understand his major works. So I think through net, that would be a faster way for you to study. As I said, or as I can see, in American literature and African, Caribbean authors and so on, the weightage is not very large. So once you do this analysis, if you have not studied it as a part of your BA or MA program, I think it would be a good idea to make use of the internet.
Yes. Farnaz Sayed wants to know which section in paper first must be focused more.
Again, difficult to answer, Farnaz, because as I said, there are 50 questions, 10 components, and roughly 4 or 5 questions per component. But what seems to be really, really important are all those questions related to teaching aptitude and education policies.
Right. There are also there are several messages saying thank you for this fantastic session. They have all appreciated your session, Dr. Madhuri. And Rutuja Kulkarni wants to know any good novels for BA students. I think that we'll keep for another occasion. And also there is a similar question by Vittal Gadekar. How can MA freshers acquire knowledge in research? Would you like to answer that?
I think in some universities there is a paper entitled Research Methodology. It depends on the college and the university. So in case you have that paper as a part of your curriculum, I think it will give you the basics of it. But otherwise, as I just answered to the previous person, pick up at least one basic book on research, for example, by Williamson, and that will give you the basics of it. Also, because you're just a student of MA, try to understand, go through the question papers and make a note of what kinds of questions are asked in research. So if you analyze the question papers, you see that very often they have asked questions on qualitative analysis, quantitative analysis. Make a note of these terms and try to procure information about them. And therefore, I said that apart from the books, you also need to talk to different scholars, experts, and researchers. You know, talk to your friend who is pursuing PhD, and in half an hour, I think he will tell you some of the important aspects of research. So that's a quick way. You know, this is we have less time in hand, and we have to get a lot of information. So whatever instant things you could do, go ahead and do them.
Right. Abhinav Bhatt has asked a question which you have already answered. So Abhinav Bhatt, ma'am has already spoken about how revision question papers, how previous question papers will be useful in as a mode of preparation. Yes. And Kailas Pardeshi also, your question has been answered. Ma'am has already suggested several books already. I think that kind of take somebody has Chandan Nahar wants to know which college is good for MA. Now, Mr. Chandan Nahar, don't make me and Madhuri madam compete with each other trying to con you into our college. Thank you all very, very much for your active participation. I know I share with all of you your sentiments that ma'am's presentation has been very, very useful, very concrete, and very, very practical. And that is her, speciality. She's a very, very, practical advisor and guide. And of course, it was unfair of me to ask ma'am to speak on net and set preparation while her special expertise is in language and language teaching, English language and literature teaching, as well as linguistics. And now that we have tasted ma'am's, class, I'm sure we will try to persuade her to give us another session on linguistics or ELLT at another time. And with that, on behalf of all the participants and on behalf of all my colleagues in the English department of Ahmednagar College and our principal and the management of the college, I thank Dr. Madhuri Gokhale for her presentation, for her time and effort in taking part in this webinar. And I hope that we will have another occasion to host Madam Gokhale's lecture. If COVID goes away quickly, then maybe we will try to host her in Ahmednagar College, if not at least through another webinar. Thank you once again, Dr. Madhuri Gokhale.
Thank you, Professor Kamlakar. It was a pleasure.
For participating. Yes, yes, Madhuri. Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. And thank you all for your participation. Right. Okay. Now coming up next in our webinar series on not tomorrow, but day after tomorrow on 17th is creative writing session. We will have on 17th a creative writing session on poetry. It's called Smashing the Workshop. It will be conducted by the poet, very widely acclaimed poet, Nabina Das from Hyderabad. And the day after, that is on 18th, we'll have a webinar session on creative writing fiction, which will be conducted by writer and editor, well-known writer and editor, Sucharita Datta Asne. Thank you all very much. See you on 17th at 11 o'clock. Bye-bye. Take care.